This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust you'll consider this like a vitamin or a mineral for your heart, as a supplement for your heart and mind, and wherever you receive podcasts from. Would you please subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a brief rating and a written review? It will enable others to be able to locate this podcast. Today I want to discuss the difference between advice and opinions. And right at the top, you can't hardly get into seeking advice and listening to opinions and another word not creep into it, and that is criticism. If you're going to attempt anything in life, you're going to be criticized. As a matter of fact, I think it was Joseph Addison who said there's no cure for criticism except obscurity, meaning that if you don't know anything, you don't do anything, you don't attempt anything, you may have an outside chance of escaping criticism, but there'd be some friend or family member who would find something about it. I have received my fair share of criticism in the years of my life, and I have to agree, like all of you, there are times that it stings and it hurts. But let's just take a step back for a moment, my leadership friends. There's not one of us who hasn't participated in critiquing the attitude, the efforts, or the results of others. As a matter of fact, in the days that we're living right now, I hear people criticizing states' governors, and sometimes rightly so. I get that. The president, the Congress, on and on it goes. It's almost as if you listen to people, it seems as if everyone is an expert on how to do someone else's job, but haven't seemed yet to figure out how to do their own. And so it amazes me, people who are not doing real well in their own work know how you ought to run the country, the Congress, and their state. But the thing that you have to sort of toughen your hide, and you have to develop an immunity for it, because most of us know deep down that there is a sense in which honest, open, some used to call it constructive criticism, will help us to grow and stretch. As a matter of fact, criticism is a lot like pain is for the body. It causes us to see what's the matter. It causes us to reevaluate. There are times when you receive criticism that it does help us to pause, hit the pause button, look it over, think about it. Perhaps something has come out of the criticism as something that we hadn't thought of before, perhaps an angle or a viewpoint that we didn't understand or appreciate. The people usually ask for criticism, but what they're really wanting is they're asking for praise. That's most of us. We would rather hear people compliment us and affirm us and encourage us. But we don't much appreciate criticism. Well, as it's already been stated today, you're not going to live very long or attempt very much in life in which criticism isn't going to be a part of it. If I have a piece of advice right here at the beginning of this podcast about criticism, is you'll become a better woman and a better man when you learn how to endure criticism without resentment. Not too many days ago, I received a fairly critical writing from someone, and not only criticizing actions that I'd taken or decisions that I'd made, but really criticizing me as a person. It wasn't anonymous because I wouldn't have read it had it been anonymous. They signed their name. And I had to really think my way through, pray my way through, because one of the things that I am trying to attempt to do in these days is receive it. I went back over it to be the letter again, trying to be as broad-minded as I could be, trying to keep my feelings and my emotions in check. I looked for, were there truths? Because oftentimes Our critics will help us to see things about ourselves that our friends will never help us to see. Matter of fact, they probably will not be categorized as your friend unless and until they are able to overlook some of those things. And so I first went back over to see, is some of this fair? Is some of this out of their own hurt? Is some of it a matter of perspective? And if I were where they are, I could interpret my actions and what I had done be that way. And so what you can correct, you can correct. If you need to say you're sorry, if you truly, firmly believe that and are sincere, then you need to offer an apology. But at the end of the day, I had to fold it back up, put it back in the envelope, realize that it had been a learning experience, a part of the color and the texture of my life that goes into creating me to be the person I've been created to be. And my last act is, let me receive this, let me move on. I'm not going to let it define me, but I am not going to strike back, I'm not going to react, and I'm not going to respond in a resentful manner. One of the things that all of us need to do is to be our own critic. At times when we see that things that we're doing that need to be corrected, don't wait for someone else to do it. Do it yourself. But let's get back onto the main subject at hand. Not just the difference between advice and opinion, but how do we handle it? Usually I distinguish it in a kind of a maybe simple, hopefully not a simplistic way, is I feel like advice is based on knowledge and experience. Usually when I'm seeking advice from someone, I want, what do you know about this particular given subject and issue at hand? And from your life experience, have you come across something? Have you in your experience bank come across in your own life something like that? An opinion oftentimes may be built on some sets of knowledge, but a lot of times it's what someone thinks and it's what someone feels. That does not invalidate it out of hand, but everyone, all of us have opinions. And they are based remotely and sometimes in a great distance from facts, and sometimes they are facts. But oftentimes they involve feelings as well. But life is filled with both advice and opinions, and there's always kernels of truth. There's always something to be gleaned. There's always some way to be helped. And I want to, when I'm seeking advice and opinions on which way to go, I'm looking for their ideas that are based in fact, not my grandma told me this, or this is what my family always does. Now, again, it's hard to separate the word criticism. Do not ever allow the criticism to get to the point that you become a victim. And when someone gives you an opinion that's varying from yours, or advice perhaps that you didn't seek out, there are some people who offer their advice whether you're seeking it or not. Again, this is an area where some of us have to really work hard at, and that is not to react. For a good portion of my life, I have reacted, and there are times when I react and then need to pull back and kind of think it through. Again, when it involves your ideas and your actions, it's very difficult not to, in fact, take things personally. But as much as possible, separate yourself from the issue at hand, the matter at hand, and look at it kind of in a non-emotional way. And it'll help you that way. One of the things when I'm asking people their opinions or their advice, mostly I ask for their advice, is I again want to always orient it, is this in any way based on fact? I have found, rather than saying, give me your opinion or give me some advice, I have found it is much more helpful if I ask questions and listen to them. And I don't just listen to them. When I am particularly interested in what their advice or opinion is, I pull out a notepad and a pen and I write down because I'm really wanting to hear it. I'm really wanting to know what is their view and what is their opinion. Now, the thing about it is, someone's opinion does not necessarily have to become my reality unless there is something that's based on fact and all of those things. As I've said, advice is more knowledge and experiential based. Opinion sometimes is surmises and how people feel rather than what they think. I had someone who was always giving me their advice unsolicited, their opinions, usually critical and oftentimes very critical. I read somewhere of a little method to use with people like this, and I want to tell you the few times that I've used it in my life, it has worked very well. And that is, I go to that detractor, I go to that critic, I go to that naysayer, and I say to them, I am working on a project and I really need your help. You are a thinker and you're able to think sequentially. Would you be willing to help me with this project? And, it's not necessarily all the time something major, but it is amazing that you can at times harness the critic, harness the very negative, opinionated person. And when you put them into the situation where they are helping you to move things along and helping you to create things, I have to say this, I've won some of the best friends that I still possess to this day who at one time were very critical, at one time very negative about things, but by bringing them in and making them a part of helping really change things in their life. One of the things is that there's a difference between what is just pure criticism and disagreements. There are disagreements in the best of families. There are disagreements from time to time amongst the best of friends. Disagreements are, in fact, a part of life. Make sure that you always create space in your life and room in your life where people can safely disagree with you, where you do your best to keep your emotions in check and you do not react or strike back. You listen to it with the idea, I'm going to push through the parts that hurt and push through the parts that feel personal, and I'm going to find the grains of truth, the kernels of truth, and I'm going to act upon them. When I'm seeking the opinion in a committee meeting, what I have decided at times is that if I give my opinion first, it has a tendency to shut some people down. It doesn't shut the right ones down. It shuts people down who you really could garner something from their opinion. So I'm learning to try to sit back and let my opinion come out later in the meetings. And again, as you are listening and you're trying to discern, is this something I need to hear and listen to? Ask yourself as you're receiving, whether it's an opinion or advice, or you're trying to distinguish which, if it's either, ask yourself, how based in facts does this seem to be? Through their advice or the giving of their opinion or even criticism, did you hear something that you hadn't thought of before? Maybe a point of view you had not considered. I think at the very least, hit the pause button and take some time to reflect on what they said. Have they given you some insight into something that you may need to check again or recheck? That maybe some of your assumptions are not as based in reality or fact as you think it is. Did they say anything that gave you pause? Did you think, that's an interesting thing. I may want to look at that again. Because a wise person makes their own decision by gathering facts from all sorts of places, including the advice and opinions of others. It's the ignorant person who follows public opinion. So try being informed, not just opinionated, but open to listening to the opinions of others. And then you have to also fight against caring too much about the opinions of others, because when we care so much about the opinions of others, we in a sense become their prisoner. So as a leader, you're going to have to distinguish between advice, opinions, and criticism. And you can learn and you can become better by applying all three of them in your life. You have been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom. Words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust that this has been like a vitamin or a supplement today for your heart and mind. And again, wherever you receive podcasts from, would you please, pretty please, subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom. It would be very helpful, especially those of you on iTunes, if you'd leave a rating and a brief written review. Remember, my leadership friend, you are doing better than you think you are. You really are. And until next time, this is Dr. Ron saying, have a great and blessed day.